I think that it's gradually picking up speed, and we're going to see a lot more innovations being released this year. I think everybody really was limping through last year, just trying to stay in business and just trying to get the members to come back. Not too many people really introducing new stuff, but we're starting to see that happen. I think there's going to be a big rush of it this year. We have about a dozen new programs that we're going to be launching over the next couple of years. And in some ways, it's the same as it's always been. Most people who join gyms join between the ages of 16 or 18 and 35 years old. If you look at the average number of members, the average membership age, normally it's in the high 30s. But if you look at when people join, the graph looks like this. And you have a very long tail of older people who pull the average in that direction. But the biggest joining age, and we've done studies of 5,000 gyms around the world, the biggest single joining age is 24. So you have to get people while they're in that age group. And it's natural. It's been the case with every generation. It's not just Gen Z. It's when people are young and they don't have big commitments like mortgages and children. And they're very conscious of wanting to meet other people and wanting to get in good shape and wanting to have a community. And so it's always been the case. This generation, well, the trends have changed each generation that I've seen because I've seen 5 generations in my life, in my 55 years of working in gyms. But for group fitness, I've seen 4 generations, the baby boomers through the 80s, my generation, and then in the 90s, in the early, the 90s Gen X, and then the millennials, and now we're seeing Gen Z. And with every one of those generations, there's been a change in the different types of classes that they like, and we've seen an evolution. You know, in the 80s, we had high impact aerobics, and we had low impact aerobics, and we had some dance classes. But then in the 90s, it sort of shifted from leotards and leg warmers to more athletic classes. We saw step classes, we saw spinning classes, we saw weightlifting, body pump classes, we saw Taibo and martial arts classes. So everything became more athletic. And then with the millennials, it shifted again. Some of those trends continued to evolve. We had strength training really evolved more and more towards, for instance, CrossFit was a big thing with the millennials. People started lifting heavier and heavier weights. Also, we saw a lot of HIIT classes, very high intensity classes with people pushing themselves very hard. We had yoga fusion was something that came. Yoga and some of the mind-body classes really just came into gyms in the 90s. And you know, you weren't allowed to mix them with music or to mix yoga with Pilates or something. Now, everybody does it. So yoga fusion became a huge boom over the last 20 years. With the millennials, with Gen Z, the same trends are continuing, but it's a little bit different because they've had the pandemic and they've suffered a lot of mental health problems. I think some of the mental health problems were the result of being alone, being isolated from their communities during the pandemic. But a lot of it's coming from social media, from some of the stresses of social media. And you've all seen the research that is saying that mental illness is now the biggest health problem in the world. Over 1 billion people diagnosed with some kind of mental ill health, mostly anxiety and stress that they want to deal with. So you're seeing something a little different with Gen Z. They still want strength because strength makes them feel empowered and resilient. And that's part of the evolution of strength right through the generations. You know, it went with feminism. Women wanted to become strong and empowered. They wanted to be physically strong, they wanted to feel strong and feel empowered. And there's a lot of research around that started way back in the 80s. That's continued, and with the younger generation, with the Gen Z and the young millennials, they really want to be strong. You're seeing a lot of young women especially lifting Olympic weights, you know, very heavy weights in the gym. You're seeing another whole group of them who want to de-stress. They want mind-body, they want to do meditation and yoga and Pilates and breathing just to de-stress. Some people want to get strong and resilient, others want to just wind down. But it's a mix, because don't forget that that yoga and Pilates have a lot of strength. Yoga is fantastic, and Pilates is fantastic functional strength work. So it's all getting mixed up a little bit, and a lot of people want to do cardio. All of these exercise, different types of exercise, stimulate the production of different hormones that make us feel different. So endorphins, when we do cardio, you know, we feel wonderful, and we feel high, we feel less depressed. Weight training, we feel strong and empowered and resilient. Mind body, we feel chilled, and that's kind of where the trends are going. You're seeing a lot more strength with Gen Z and the young millennials. You're seeing a lot more real chill out modalities, breathing classes. You're starting to see things like contrast therapy, you know, the hot and cold therapy with the freezing cold, things just to make people feel better. And you're seeing some, you know, the dance styles have, the fitness dance classes have evolved over the years, we sort of, you know, we went from jazz dance styles to funk dance styles in the 90s, to hip hop, and then bar with the millennials. And now we're starting to see like euphoric dance, some really unusual modalities. Dance makes people feel wonderful. You know, dance is something that has an incredible impact, an emotional impact on people. There's a big relationship between your brain and between movement patterns, creative movement patterns. So yeah, very interesting to see the relationship between the generations and what's happening for them, and the evolution of different types of exercise. We try to give people what they need. Yes, it's a challenge, but it's what we do, and it's what we've been doing for over 40 years with our classes. So we have a lot of systems and a lot of processes for innovation, and for really listening to people and finding out what they want, and for picking the trends. So it's a challenge, but it's something that we know how to do. Are we influencing the trends? Yes, sometimes I think we are. I think that body pump, for instance, in the 90s really did influence a lot of the trends. Brought weight training to women in particular. All of a sudden you had women doing barbell training and you know, doing 1,000 repetitions in a class, and that changed the way. I think that probably our immersive training will change the way. So classes like the Trip, where you're riding your bike in front of a big screen, and you're riding through cities on other planets or cities in the future. It's very expensive to build that technology, and it's expensive to install it in clubs. Not many clubs in the world have it, but it's growing, and I think that's going to be something that happens more and more with this generation. You have to follow the trends, okay? So you have to create modern strength classes that follow the trends, modern mind body and dance classes and cardio classes that follow the trends. Every generation likes different types of music, and you know, we talked about how the exercise modalities are evolving. but everybody likes something new. Even my generation, I like to try the new classes. I get bored doing some of the old classes. Even with the old classes, you have to keep developing them using a little bit newer styles of music, a little bit newer styles of exercise, a little bit newer ways of coaching people and teaching people. In the 80s and the 90s, it was very cheesy. It was, but now the coaching is a lot more authentic and a lot more expert. So those things are all shifting, and it's a lot more authentic. It's real people talking to real people. So we had a partnership with Reebok for 7 or 8 years, and Reebok were owned by Adidas. And when Adidas sold Reebok, they wanted us to continue with them. They were launching their new training division. They have seen that fitness is now the biggest sport in the world. If you look at the number of hours that people spend playing different sports, going to the gym is now the biggest sport in the world. And so you have a huge percentage of the public. You have more than 30% of the public are going to some kind of a gym. And so Adidas is they have seen that this is a big sport with a big market that they have to chase. So we're one of the people in fitness who they have partnered with. And I think that that's going to be a very powerful thing for the fitness industry, because when a big company like Adidas decides to really get involved in an industry like ours, you're going to see the industry being promoted and really growing. It's going to be something that I think is going to be of benefit to the whole fitness industry. You're going to see better fitness clothing, and that's something which makes the industry cooler. When there are cooler clothes to wear to play your sport, then that brings more people to want to play the sport. You're going to see a lot of promotion, a lot more promotion of our industry of fitness as a sport, and that's again is going to be something that's going to bring a lot more people in. So it's following trends that have already been building. When I started working in gyms in the 1960s in my parents' gym, there was maybe 1% of the population who went to gyms. And like I said, now it's more than 30% of the population, maybe getting towards 40% of the population who are going to some kind of a gym. And that's a trend that has been growing, but this is like pouring more fuel on the fire and putting energy really behind that trend. I think it's going to really help us to grow. I think a lot of the big factors that are influencing the industry right now, aside from the big sociological factors that have driven the growth of the industry, like feminism, like time poorness, like desire for community, all of those things. The big factors, we've seen the low-cost clubs and we've seen the boutiques, and so a lot of those things are competing to create the future. It's very difficult. If you're a boutique and you only have one thing that you do, it's very difficult to be successful. You have to be very, very good at it. So the boutiques have got very good at doing that one thing. And to a certain extent, they've been able to be part of a bigger gym by being part of the aggregators, ClassPass or somebody like that. Somebody can go and they can use your boutique and 2 or 3 others. So it's like they belong to one gym. And we've seen that the low-cost clubs more and more have put classes in, and almost all of the low-cost clubs in the world now have classes, and some of them are starting to put boutiques inside. We are seeing the mid-market and the upper market put boutiques inside their clubs. And that that's going to be a very interesting one to watch. I had aerobic studios in New Zealand and in Australia in the 1980s. In 1980, I opened my first aerobic studio, and I had several of them. But when the big gyms, like my parents' gym, put aerobic studios in, it got very tough. You know, we were very successful in the beginning. We had people lining up outside our clubs to get in. But when the big clubs put in aerobic studios, our business really collapsed. Now, maybe the aggregators are going to help that to be a different story this time around, but I think we are going to see more and more of the traditional clubs and the low-cost clubs putting boutique activities inside. So there's huge growth because, you know, the boutiques have developed some wonderful classes, and they've had a real focus on developing great teachers, recruiting and developing great instructors. And this is very important because the same as it's always been, if you have a single great instructor will attract and retain hundreds of people to your club. If you can have a team of them, it's thousands of people, and it changes your life as a club owner. It makes your club very successful. So the boutiques have supercharged that. They've really put an emphasis on that, and they've paid people more. The traditional clubs have tended to pay group fitness instructors quite low wages for a long time, much more for personal trainers. But now there's competition. I think we are going to see better paid group fitness instructors, and we are going to see better instructors, you know, better and better people, and people investing more in training, hopefully with us, because we have the best instructor training system in the world. We have had that for a long time. This is going to grow the industry because the experience of going to a gym is going to get better and better and better. There's so much competition, and our industry is half about giving expert exercise guidance, but it's half about motivating people to exercise, creating exciting, motivating exercise experiences to get people in the gyms and to keep them there. And this is really starting to take off more and more right now. I think this decade is going to see a lot of growth in the quality of the experience, the motivational quality of the experiences that are offered in gyms.